Hey there, I am Barb Higgins, and this is 1,000 Tiny Steps. In this podcast, I share my stories of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy as I continue to retrace my steps and ponder what led to the death of my daughter Molly. By doing so, I hope to not only help myself, but to bring purpose and possibility to those who listen. If you are ready to laugh, cry, shake your head in disbelief, then tie, buckle, lace up, or slip on your shoes and join me as we begin our 1,000 Tiny Steps.
Hey everybody, Barb Higgins here, welcoming you to episode 149 of 1,000 Tiny Steps. Last week, we talked about step 1 of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, admitting we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. That's a huge admission to somebody that's been a daily drinker, or a huge admission for a drug addict that's been a daily user, or a huge admission for a child abuse victim that's been abused every day and finally realizes they can't stand it anymore. That's a huge admission for somebody in an unhappy marriage who finally says, I'm done. I have to pack my bags and move out. That's a huge admission for someone who's been fighting cancer and finally says, that's it. No more chemo. I'm done. We all have points in our lives where things get to a point that we can't do it anymore and we're done. Look at a toddler on the floor at a grocery store having a tantrum. There's nothing wrong with that child. They're just done. They're acknowledging it for the world to see. My life has become unmanageable. So in this book, Breathing Underwater, which is written by a sober man named Richard Rohr, who takes the 12 steps and applies them to Christian beliefs, I'm utilizing his thoughts to take them one step further and just apply them to life, not necessarily the giving up of an addiction, not necessarily alcohol or a thing, but life in general. How can we step back and look at our lives and all the things that we do, right? And better manage them and handle them so that we can have a happier, healthier life. Finally, acknowledging that you're done is an incredible first step. So then what? What happens next? Well, step 2 is came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So you've cried uncle. Okay, I give up. I give up. Now what? All right, well, you know what? I think something bigger than me is going to make it okay. I can't do it myself. You're not even actually saying you can't do it yourself yet. You're just acknowledging power greater than myself can restore me to sanity. So in AA, the initial teachings of AA, this power greater than ourselves was referred to as God. However, in the wording around AA, it never stops there. It's always however you define God in your life, whatever you choose to call him or her, it, or whatever you choose not to call it. In talking to a couple of friends of mine over the past week, when they asked where my podcast was going, I brought this up and I talked about the spirituality around the 12 steps. And a friend of mine is an atheist. And she said, don't you think that might turn off listeners who are atheists? And I'm like, well, you know, this friend of mine is a runner. I'm like, when you're in a race and you're really starting to tank, what do you do? And she goes, well, I call him the strength of the universe. I'm like, okay, so a hardcore Christian would say, I call him the strength of Jesus. It's no different. Somebody calls it Jesus and pictures a guy with a beard. Someone else calls it the universe and pictures molecules of strength. It's the same thing. That's the power that's greater than yourself. That's the piece of the world that you can reach out for help. Like anything in AA or in the 12 steps or in any sort of healing program, it's about the process, right? It's not about, okay, I accept it now. Yep. How do you get there? How do you truly get to the point where not only do you accept that a higher power can help you, but that you open yourself up enough to let the higher power help you? And this is what chapter 2 is in the book, Breathing Underwater. So what Richard says about step 2 is the necessary longing, delaying, and backsliding that invariably precedes the full-blown leap of faith. It is wise to use an active verb to describe this step. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. What I picture in my head is standing on top of this big cliff in Hawaii, in Waimea Bay, and I wanted to jump off into the water. And all of the things you go through before you finally go. There were a lot of locals sitting up on that rock who would let me know when it was safe to jump based on the tide. That you can do this, a lot of encouragement. There was my friend at the time, Joni, on the beach saying, jump out, make sure you jump out. Like, all the little pieces and parts had to click before I finally took the leap. And of course I jumped and it was awesome. And I landed in the water and I loved it and said, happy birthday to Gracie. And there it was, right? That was my leap into the water. What Richard says When I say Richard's the author of Breathing Underwater, he says that for this to happen, for us to really open our hearts, minds, and bodies to believe this and to actually let a higher power help us, three things have to happen. Three spaces have to open. Our opinionated head, we're full of all those opinions that support what we want to think. Our closed down heart, can't hurt me. I have no heart. I'm done. And our defensive and defended body, right? Our bodies hold it. Our bodies hold so many memories and experiences, and they express them in ways that are not always helpful. And we punish ourselves by hurting our bodies. So they're defensive. The body has to defend itself, defended. So then, of course, that often leads to religious talk, right? A power greater than yourself, that has to be God. That's religion. So I'm not anti-religion. I certainly don't shove religion down people's throats. I think God gives us brains. A tenet in my religion is independent investigation of the truth. You have to read it and find it. You have to believe it. I know that blindly following something can be called faith, having faith that it's right. But to have faith that something is right, you've done a lot of research, and some of the right in what you're believing resonates with you, right? So opinionated head, closed down heart, defensive body. So Richard goes on to say about religion that religion is there for people who are afraid of going to hell. And I see that, especially Western Christianity that preaches your sinful nature. And if you don't do these things, you're going to burn in hell. So go to church and pray and all the things that if you don't do it, you're going to burn in hell, right? We tied into sin. Religion for people who are afraid of going to hell, right? If I go to church every Sunday, I'll go to heaven. Spirituality is for those of us who have been there. Spirituality is for people who have been in hell. So I don't think there are too many people on the planet that would have a hard time sharing a story of a time they felt like they were in hell. I still think I have more than most, but I certainly can say that I've been in hell. You can't be sexually assaulted and not know what hell is like. You can't lose a job in the manner that I lost mine and not know what hell is like. You can't be betrayed by your parents and not know what hell is like. You can't be involved with someone like Roy and not know what hell is like. You can't lose a child and not know what hell is like. And that's just mine. Right? Those are my losses, right? Those aren't yours or, the millions of examples that people have worldwide. Religion either produces the very best people or the very worst people. So these are thoughts from this book that Richard put into this particular chapter. How do we, the powerless and unmanageable life person who now acknowledges, yep, I think I'm going to come to believe that a power greater than me can help me. How do we get there? Because it's not an overnight journey. One of the first things to acknowledge is AA is full of really super religious people. Lots and lots of people come into 12-step and self-help groups with religion and a strong, quote unquote, religious faith, but they don't utilize it in a meaningful way. They haven't really intuited the beauty of it and allowed it to help you. It's a guideline or a framework to exist within rather than something that is there to push you up and help you succeed, right? This process of letting go of all of those predisposed ideas about what you think you're supposed to do so that you can be an open receptacle for what the universe or God wants you to do is part of the process of coming to believe in a greater power, right? The come to believe. So the first thing that has to happen is you have to open the three places. You have to open the opinionated head, you have to open the closed heart, and you have to open the body. And there are pretty specific ways that you can begin to do this. When it comes to the mind, to keep the mind space open, you have to do something with your mind. You have to become reflective. To become reflective, you have to step out of it. You have to step out of the fray. There's a saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. When you're in the middle of a forest, all you see are the trees around you. But if somebody scoops you up and puts you on top of a mountain, so you're out of the forest, but looking at it, now you have context of the forest. You see where the forest is in relation to other things. You can reflect upon things that you cannot see when you're in it. So what's the first step to be reflective? Prayer and meditation. So in the big book, in the AA book, Bill W. talks about how necessary this is from the beginning. From the beginning. I know when I was active in AA, a lot of speakers would say how the first thing they do when they get up is get out of bed and get down on their knees and thank God for another day. And that's the gratitude piece. But they also spend time reflecting and praying and contemplating. So I have a hard time with this. I've spent thousands of dollars on spiritual mentoring and self-help and all of these different things. And all of them come around to reflection, prayer, meditation, daily spiritual practice. These are all things I incorporate in my life on a regular basis. But I'm kind of like the religious person that isn't really allowing the religion to flow through me. I'm trying to like control it and manipulate it around my needs or follow it blindly. Prayer and meditation. It's necessary to get into a non-dual state of consciousness where you're not thinking about 50 things. You're only thinking about one thing, either a preset thing like a mantra or a mantram or a quote or a philosophy, or maybe just nothing. So this journal that goes along with the book has little activities and things to do at the end of each chapter before you start the next chapter. Spend some time doing these different things. So for example, at the end of chapter 1, breathing. Breathe in and hold it for 20 seconds. The first thing I noticed when I attempted all of this was that while I was doing the breathing exercise, all I was thinking about was the breathing exercise. I'm like, that was sneaky. The other thing in the chapter 1 homework was, while you're doing the breathing, contemplate these things. We suffer to get well. We surrender to win. We die to live. We give it away to keep it. Essentially, all of those are different examples of saying, I'm done, take it away. I can't manage it this way anymore. If I ever want it back, I have to give it away. I had a poster in my room when I was little, and it said, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back to you, it was yours. If it doesn't, it never was and never will be. And how many teenage girls think about that with boyfriends? They break up with you, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. Well, that can all be hokey, but it's actually also really quite true. And in anything that we're holding on to, the only way we can truly keep it is to let it go, because holding on to it is clutching it, and that's not keeping it in a meaningful way. Keeping the mind space open, reflecting, meditating. What this does is it helps us to overcome stinking thinking. So that was always a big thing in AA. And stinking thinking, as I learned it all those years ago, was any thought process that leads you back to the decisions that make you drink. Anything that will cause you to pick up that drink is stinking thinking. Self-hatred, anything that just gets in the way of your process. So it goes a step further, because with a lot of addicts, stinking thinking is also all or nothing thinking. And this has been a huge task for me in working with Carolina to overcome for myself. I'm an all or nothing person. If I don't get everything on my list done, then it was a waste of a day. And why do I even bother? I can just spiral myself into such unhealthy thinking. It's not good. But I do it. Spirituality is emptying the mind and filling the heart at the same time. Filling the heart. All right. So the heart, our beautiful hearts. How is it now that we're going to make our hearts opened as opposed to being closed down? Well, there are a couple of things you can do. One of them is a very sort of cerebral thing. And there's this thing called the Enneagram, and it's 9 personality types. And what you do is you look at it and you choose the ones that pop out to you. And they're interesting. I'm not going to get too deep into it because it's sort of a sidetrack. There are 9 types of personalities, and each personality type has 2 words that describe it. And they're sort of opposite words or contradictory words, even if they're not opposite. So number 1 is reformer, perfectionist. Number 2 is helper, giver. Number 3 is achiever, performer. See how they're the same but different? Number 4, individualist, romantic. Number 5, investigator, observer. Number 6, loyalist, loyal skeptic. Number 7, enthusiast, epicure. Number 8, challenger, protector. Number 9, peacemaker, mediator. So when I look at all of these, number 2 right away, helper, giver, I'm the person in my family that has to fix everything all the time. That one came out to me. The other one that came out was achiever, performer. I love to achieve things. I love to set goals and get them. I love to show off in front of people, And then the other one was peacemaker and mediator. And again, that goes to me sort of fixing things. In terms of opening your heart, in this self-reflection, what I would have to do, so let's look at the helper and the giver. Okay, so I can help someone get their own stuff, or I could give stuff away. So what I want, I think, is to be a helper. I want to help people reach their goals and all this. I think of the Molly B Foundation. But the giver just gives it. Here, take the money. Here, take the money. Here, I'll give you money. In order to help people, I need to raise money for my foundation so that I can create an endowment that makes sure children for the next 100 years can do theater if they want to. No, I'm just like, okay, just take some dead Molly money. Here, I'll give it to you. Do Do you see the difference? That one of them is a very positive part of me and one of them isn't, even though they're both ultimately doing the same thing. Same with performer and achiever. I can stand up and perform and achieve nothing. Or I can stand up and perform and set a goal, win a race, win a competition, raise the most money, I don't know, win an award, right? Both of the things, the descriptors are the same, but one is much more ego-based and one is much more, I think, pure. At least that's how I see it. The key to opening your heart is to acknowledge both sides, the right side, the side that's working well, and the other side, the side that's working against you. When you acknowledge both sides, that's the only way you can really set the good in you free. That's how you unchain your heart, if that makes sense. That's one thing to do. And that's good for people that like to think and utilize information to make decisions. Another really good way to open your heart is to participate in right-brained activities. Music, art, dance, nature, fasting, poetry, games, life-affirming sexuality, and of course, the art of relationship itself. So all of these things open your heart. I remember shortly after Molly died, I insisted that Gracie stay in chorus. She wanted to quit. And I'm like, no, honey, you need to sing. And I know some of the songs won't like, but sing, it's just good for your soul. It's good for you to sing. And I was frantic, so afraid that Gracie was going to kill herself, that Molly's death would overwhelm her and that she wouldn't pull back from it. So I get it. For me, I haven't worked out much at all in the last 2 weeks. And as I said last week, I'm not doing great. You know, by the time you hear this, hopefully I will have a couple of weeks of exercise under my belt. But, you know, I have this pin in my foot. I just had some teeth pulled out of my mouth. I haven't worked out in any meaningful way. And I get bonkers. And I believe that what happens for me is the lack of physical release closes my heart. It takes away my ability to manage things and be okay with things. I know that I do the best praying when I'm doing a repetitive activity. Running. Oh my gosh, I used to lose myself on runs, getting caught up in prayers and reflections and meditations. Rowing, the rowing machine, swimming laps, anything that's got sort of a regular motion to it where I can let go of my thoughts, right? So I get into the meditation and reflection. I get into it through movement. My editor just had me listen to this great podcast. The Boss Belongs to Me, and it's about a queer community. These two queer people who love Bruce and how his words totally resonate with them in their struggles as trying to identify as queer in a world that doesn't always treat queer people kindly, right? And so when I listen to the words through them and their reality, I totally get it. I have many things. Queer isn't one of them. Oh, I'm not normal, but Bruce for me was always about like middle-class empowerment, growing up on the wrong side of the tracks. I don't care. My dress is cheap. I'm as smart as you are. Totally different message for me. But the fact that I can listen to Bruce and have resonation and reflection and support and recognition around my innermost struggles, and somebody totally different than me can as well, is a tribute to the power of music on the heart and the soul. Opening up your heart, sometimes the best way to open your heart is through music. And listening to the narrators of this podcast talk about how they felt when they first heard a song, oh my gosh, I can go right back to it. Bruce sings a song called The River. And that's a song, when I listen to it, I relive so many heartbreaking emotions and times in my life. That's the right brain activity, opening and freeing your heart. So find those things, right? We should find the things that do it for us. That's why people get involved in things, activities that take them outside of themselves. So anyway, that's step 2, opening up the heart space. We also, in opening up the heart space, have to apply this to our relationships, that we have to learn in relationships to be a healthy partner, both as the giver and the receiver. Relationship-wise, I have a long way to go before I can even begin to make sense of how my mind works around romantic involvement. But friendships, I've learned so much in working with Carolina around how my past experiences play into the people I choose in my life. So we must also be in a right relationship with people so we can both give and receive love in a healthy way. So for me, I'm drawn to narcissistic people. Clearly, people that in some way set out to hurt other people. That's not a lot of people in the world, but my experiences at the charter school, at the gymnastics academy, and in my relationship with Roy, I don't know that I could get sucked in as easily now. And it's only recently that I've come to this place. And a lot of it is just opening my heart to all that goes into the people we choose. All right. So we've opened our heart. We've opened it by doing these right brain activities. The final piece about heart is that we often only realize how bad things have been for us when we've crossed over into a reality of healthy living. Sometimes you don't know how sick you were until you're well. And you can say, God, I didn't realize how sick I was until I don't feel sick anymore. Sometimes the bad creeps in so slowly. It's like the undertow, right? The undercurrent, you don't know it's there. You feel it tugging, and then suddenly it sucks you under. It's like the frog in the slowly boiling pot of water. They don't jump out because they don't realize it's getting hot until it's too late. That is oftentimes the process of heart opening, where you don't realize how heartbroken you've been until you aren't. And then you look back and think, oh, I'm so glad I don't feel that way anymore. Every heart needs to be broken and broken open at least once to have any heart at all. So this always leads me back to a saying about, the different people you meet in your life. So when I look at all the different people in my life that I've met over the course of my 61 years, I have people in my life who I think how lucky they are. They've just sailed through life. They've never had everything's gone right. They grew up and their house was normal and they went to college and they got their degree and they got their job and they got their spouse and they live in their house and now they're doing, they're repeating what their parents did. And it's not that those people don't have hearts, right? It's not that they don't know how to love. It's not that they don't enjoy life, but sometimes the only way that you have anything is to have had nothing. The only way you know true happiness is to have been truly unhappy. And so this sentence makes sense to me. Every heart needs to be broken and broken open at least once to have any heart at all. And I think it's because that's how you can step out and turn around and see the other side of things, right? So the last thing that we have to open before we can truly accept allowing a higher power into our reality to help us is our bodies. So when I read The Body Keeps the Score by Besser van der Kolk about trauma and the trauma response, that was an eye-opener for me. Anyone that's suffered abuse to their body, physical abuse, sexual abuse, humiliation of that type, understands separation and dissonance and what I call stepping out, right? You get out of yourself. Goodbye, I'm not here anymore. It's a very, very great survival tactic, but it's not a good life skill because you can't separate from yourself all the time. Life requires you to be here now all the time. So to keep our bodies less defended, we must be present in it in a very cellular way. So I described taking the deep breath and holding it for 20 seconds, right? All I was thinking about was the fact that I was holding my breath. So I was totally in tune with my body. The first time I felt okay about my body, I remember it vividly. I had started running and I was doing a workout on the track, or no, I was running a race, I think. One or the other. It was at Memorial Field. And I was running up the back stretch of the track and the ocean was roaring in my ears. And I was in so much pain. And the scoreboard, it's a football scoreboard, it has yards to go on it. And I looked up at it, I'm like, yards to go. And I'm like, well, with every step I take, I have one less yard to go, right? So I made this positive thing happen. But I was totally, at that moment, preoccupied with my body, like how it felt, that I was in so much pain, but I could still keep running, that I could hear the ocean in my ears, that I could feel every breath down my throat and into my lungs. I looked down and saw my legs moving, even though I sort of couldn't feel that. It was the most complete mind-body experience I'd ever had in my life. And as someone who stepped out as much as she could, dissociation to the max, my friend, this was a huge moment for me. We have to be present in our bodies in a cellular way. We then must heal past hurts and the memories stored in our bodies. So I still have triggering responses to things, that certain things will trigger like a real physical and guttural response for me, less and less as I go along. But this isn't called being dramatic or holding on. It's a very, very neurologically supported reaction to a memory. We need to separate out our mind, our body, and our spirit, but the three are intricately connected. We are a walking Venn diagram, right? Food is good for your body, but a healthy body plays into a healthy heart and a healthy mind, right? Reading is good for your mind, but a healthy mind helps you create better decisions for your healthy body and healthy heart. Love is such a beautiful thing. Being in love is wonderful. And if you're loving and in love, then you can be healthier and, see, they all match. Healing past hurts. So that's me moving on and healing my childhood abuse. It's interesting because I was explaining to Carolina that I had forgiven my father. And I think it's because he sat down and just asked me to. He was horrified at what he'd done. I couldn't believe his apology for a long time. It was just too close to it all. And there are certain distances I've kept from my dad my whole life because like he lost his chance to ever be alone with Gracie and Molly, ever. But I didn't ever really, really let go of because I never got the chance to, because I had no choice in him staying in my life. There's a lot I didn't get to process. So my defenses have been up all my life. But the body speaks and the body never lies. I was just talking to a new mom about her child who was crying and crying in the night. And she was getting a lot of, oh, you sleep train him, let him cry. And I said, so my suggestion to her was, look, something's going on. Your sweetie is telling you something. Something isn't right. She doesn't know how else to tell you except to cry. So she took her to the doctor and talked about diet and indigestion and colic. And then they did a quick little physical and she's got a raging ear infection. Her little ear didn't look red. That they would never have known that's what it was if they hadn't gone and looked. 2 days of antibiotics and she's fine. She had a full night's sleep. So it wasn't that she was like sleep regressing. It wasn't like she was trying to demand her mother. She's a baby. She just wants to feel okay and sleep. How do we heal our bodies? Well, sometimes healing requires touch. If you read biblical stories of Jesus healing people, he laid his hands upon them. He touched them, right? So people who've been touched inappropriately or hit or hurt, touch takes a lot of trust to let someone touch you. I do know for me, chiropractic help, Reiki, and massage have been incredibly healing methods of medicine for me. And all of those involve somebody putting their hands on you. It also requires a lot of trust. After Molly died, I didn't get a massage or a chiropractic adjustment for several years. The thought of somebody touching me was more than I could bear. I couldn't do it, couldn't deal with it. That was that. But it often requires touch. So massage, hugs, exercise, healthy sex, all of these things are helpful in healing your body of past traumas. But you have to like them. There's all this evidence of 30-second hugs. You need to hug for at least 20 seconds to get benefit from it. There are times when 20 seconds hugging somebody would put me right over the edge. No, thank you. I don't know. The thought of it's terrible. I used to be a big hugger. However, I do know that sometimes a hand on my shoulder, just a reach out and a touch can be super helpful. And while I get defensive sometimes, not being touched doesn't make me feel better. So, you have to sort of go around and around. We must protect children from negative and fearful body messages. So obviously that means we need to protect them from being abused, right? We also need to protect them if they are abused. We need to do our best to support them and heal them and educate them so that they don't grow up with these negative body messages. So much anorexia and hair pulling and bulimia and cutting and addiction isn't about what I look like in the mirror or anyone. It's more about quieting the storm of the body, right? Shutting the body up. Stop already. So it's interesting because mind, body, spirit, Western Christianity, sin-based, guilt-producing Christianity says that the body and the soul are separate, that the body is inherently evil. The flesh is evil, but our bodies are our soul houses. Like our body is the thing in which we live. The essence of Barb lives in this body. When the body dies, the essence of me will float off somewhere else. So there are two ways to look at physical suffering and physical healing. And I've hated my body. Oh God, I just felt like my body betrayed me. What did I do with my body that made me get abused? And when I found running, it was this amazing thing I could do with my body, and it was very healing for me. Plato, philosopher, was very much about the body and the soul being at war with one another, that what we felt wasn't accurate or real, and that our soul had to conquer the body. And when I think about that, I think about running in a race and wanting to stop and not stopping, and the whole fight going on with slow down, your body hurts, and I am better than my body. Be quiet, damn body. Like all the things you say to yourself in the last 200 meters of a track and field race where you just want to stop, but you don't, right? Except then you have Jesus who preached that the body and the soul were the same thing, right? That the body and the soul are one. So let's take religion out of it for a minute. And how do you feel about the essence of you? The essence of you, the Barb of Barb, and then the body in which the Barb of Barb lives. So you can't separate your body from who you are. I know there's a lot of conflict right now and disagreement on gender and how gender has nothing to do with the body that you live in, except it has everything to do with the body you live in, or there wouldn't be issues with it, right? People either agree with their gender or they disagree with their gender, meaning the body, the gender of the body. I live in a girl's body, but I really think I'm a boy. I live in a boy's body, but I really think I'm a girl. So we create this war where stepping back and having a conversation about, okay, so this is the body in which I lived, and how can I marry the two, the Barb of Barb and the body in which I live? You can identify differently. You can surgically alter yourself. You can say, okay, this is who I am, and this is the body in which I live. There's a million ways to do it, but having a healthy love of your body is not separate from having a healthy love of who you are. Your body wears it for you and carries it for you. And I think we have a long way to go as humanity of figuring out how to balance all these conflicting beliefs around the importance and the relevance of your body. I know for me, my body is a huge piece of everything that I am. And I know that that's my story, and it's different for everybody. Repressing and denying the body is now more prevalent in some people than repressing or denying the heart and the mind. Think about that for a minute. Repressing your body, denying your body, denying thoughts, denying feelings. These are things that in psychotherapy and such, we talk about all the time. I just turn those feelings off. I try not to think about that. But denying and repressing the body, ignoring what the body tells you, not honoring the body for the messages it gives. That's a huge piece of this whole opening up all three spaces in which we exist. The body can become the ugly stepchild, right? So what do we do to the ugly stepchild, to the middle child, to the black sheep of the family? Well, we have revenge through self-harm and self-mutilation. I'll show you who's boss, you stupid body. We have a disregard for the physical realm. Physical's temporary. I don't care if I pollute. Climate change is a hoax. Climate change is real. What do I care if the dolphins are dying? It's easy to create a very, very antagonistic view of all that is physical if we create a war between spiritual and physical. I don't take a stance on any of it because I'm not quite sure where I feel. I'm still coming to believe. After all these years of having been in and out of AA and done all this reading, years, and I grew up Episcopalian. I've been a Baha'i since I was in college. I've read, and here I am like, what does it mean? What does it mean to heal my body? It's just interesting to me. Spirituality, and this is sort of his closing thoughts on spirituality, which is what we're talking about. In accepting a higher power, we're acknowledging the spiritual realm of our life, the universal power. Spirituality is liberation of head, heart, and body toward full, luminous seeing and living. It is not a one and done decision. Rather, it is a lifestyle. The liberation of the head, the heart, and the body. That's amazing to me. That's a lot of liberation right there. At the end of the little book here, Richard sort of summarizes chapter 2 with this paragraph. Reconnecting head, heart, and body. If we are to come to believe that a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, then we will come to that belief by developing the capacity for a simple, clear, and uncluttered presence. A simple, clear, uncluttered presence. Nothing about my presence is simple, clear, uncluttered. Oh my God, I have a ways to go. Those who can be present with head, heart, and body at the same time will always encounter the presence, whether they call it God or not. For the most part, those skills are learned by letting life come at us on its own terms and not resisting the wonderful underlying mystery that is everywhere all the time and offered to us too. God or the universe comes to us disguised as our life, coming to believe. That's pretty intense stuff. That's a lot of intense stuff. And, I've read it and taken notes and gotten ready for this episode. And in sharing it, I'm still learning more. So last time, the little journal entries were a super part of what helped me through it. In step 2, coming to believe in the power. The first question in our journal entry was, the surrender of faith does not happen in one moment. It's an extended journey, a trust walk, a gradual letting go. Write about a significant moment on your journey of faith to this point. Who did you have to trust in that moment? Okay, so coming up with one is important for me. So I wrote, of course, Molly's death comes to mind, but it took me 2+ years to stop getting high every day. It was the realization that Molly was truly never coming back. So there's an example of a life action that required the process. It took me 2 years to get to a point where I could be okay asking for help. Next comes my 13th summer. That's when I left my mother the note. I left my mother a note in her scarf basket and went on vacation and told her that my father had been abusing me. And then we were in Montreal. I hid from my grandparents, and and didn't want to talk to my mother on the phone. And then it all came out that I was being abused. That was a huge, and then everything that happened after that was me really learning how to trust in a higher power. Of course, for the alcohol piece, losing my Nike sponsorship, I had worked so hard to get it. Now I didn't have it. That just seems so minor and trivial compared to the other things. My job loss, and then the restraining order hearing in Newburyport with Roy when he invoked Amy, and listening to him say things. I still can't wrap my head around it. It's still such a huge thing. So turning to faith is an ongoing process for me. And what I realized, the last sort of stinking thinking decision I made was really trying to fight this thing with Roy. And I haven't spoken to him in 3 years now. And I also haven't made decisions like that. I haven't gotten sucked into another friendship like that. A couple of close calls. Okay, the next one was the hard, the head, the heart, the body. So it asks, where do you instinctively make your decisions? Which do you consider the most trustworthy? Which do you most distrust? Your head, your heart, your gut? I believe I make decisions on instinct, followed by cognitive analysis. So my gut and my head. However, my heart cradles them all. I often feel like my decisions are wrong. They often hurt me just as much as they help others. I would first tell all three to slow down. That's how I'd get better, slow down. Take a moment to think, feel, and breathe. Start with the heart, then the head, with the heart being the deciding factor there. This is how much I still struggle. And I think it comes in my head because no matter what I did as a child, my abuse didn't stop. I burned my pajamas. I cleaned my room. I wore different clothes. I covered up with 50 blankets. No matter what I did, I got abused again. So I think I taught myself that I don't make good decisions and it doesn't matter anyway. So that's a lot. That's what I learned from that. The third question was about keeping the heart space open, that we have to do things that open the heart. We have to heal the hurts that we carry with us. So I have to write about an experience of letting go of a hurt. So I forgave my father. I let go of that hurt a little bit, but I just turned it to my mother. So I'm not sure that really let go of it. I moved on from Robin. That took me a while, but that also helped me learn about Steph and some other people in my life that have narcissistic tendencies. I still carry a lot of Roy with me to this day because I thought things were something that they weren't. And I really, really piled my belief onto that. We had amazing times together, or I thought they were. I believed that they were what he was presenting. And maybe they were. It's something I will never know because I will never speak to him again. The similarities in all of my thoughts here are trust and love given and then manipulated and then taken away. I trusted my parents. I trusted Robin. I trusted Roy and Amy. I trusted Gene Connolly and Chris Rath, like the people I put my trust in. And then it got manipulated. I am not a victim. I played a role in all the scenarios here. But that pattern persists. The ones I have released the most hurts and relationships are friendships, not romantic ones. It's interesting. This is the rub of any conversion experience. We only know how much we needed it once we get on the other side. You didn't know how much you needed the ibuprofen until you took it and the headache went away. Oh my God, I totally needed that ibuprofen. It asks me to write about a time that someone stayed with me throughout a difficult time and how did their faith help you? So here's what's weird, and it fits the Barb reality. Robin. Although her motives were evil, Robin saved me, both after my job loss and after Molly died. And she did. She spent hours with me. Coach Ludi was another one. He was unwavering in his lifelong love and support for me. My friend Deb, who has held my legs literally and figuratively more times than I can count. All my angel moms here. My friend Suzanne, who I lost contact with her. She became a Jehovah's Witness and became very secluded from the rest of her life. But she was the first person I told that I was had been molested. And after I came back from my vacation, my father wasn't still moved out of our house. And so I couldn't go home. So I stayed with my aunt for 2 nights and I stayed with Suzanne for 2 nights. And so Suzanne could tell something was going on because her mother never let her have friends stay overnight more than 1 night in a row. I said, okay, Suzanne, I guess I'll tell you. And I told her what was happening to me. Suzanne wasn't like an emotional hugger at all. And I remember she climbed out of her twin bed and into the guest bed I was in and just hugged me. And I'm so sorry. She just didn't know what to do, but she was so good to me. That stayed with me. And then in my family, well, Polly, over and over and over again, Polly, my big aunt Connie, and my uncle Jimmy, my uncle Walty. In terms of my current family right now, I don't think it would matter what it was. If I reached out to Uncle Jimmy and Uncle Walty, they'd be there for me. That would just be that. More so than anyone in my immediate family. And I don't mean that as an insult to my brothers and sisters, but there's just a level of unbridled commitment, and they have it. And then finally, oh no, not finally, every heart needs to be broken, right? In order to be a heart. So here's how my heart's been broken and broken open. Being molested by your father and then being betrayed by your mother. Being accused of doing things that you didn't do and losing a 20-year career over it. Giving it all up, doing what he said again and again, just to be deserted and then erased. Molly's death, and baby Gordy and his death. Katie, my stepdaughter. Those are all my big hearts, my big hurts, like my big lay my heart open. Romantically speaking, when my heart was broken, Jay in high school, Jim Graham, Chaz, David, heartbroken, broken hearts. That's how my sort of relationship woes. Notice that I didn't write Eric in here. Isn't that funny? My first husband. That's telling. How do you carry stress in your body? This is interesting for me. I carry it in my joints, my hands and my feet. I carry it in my jaw where my injury was. I carry it in my lungs where I'm asthmatic. I worry, so I have my golf divots. If you're watching, I'm showing you my wrinkles on my face. I think my body talks to me. It tells me to breathe. I think sometimes when I start to have asthma, it's a trigger for my body to say, slow down, Barbara, stop, sit, rest, be still. And also when I start to have a lot of built up anger, my body tells me to get moving. You need to move around now. And then finally, the last one, how do you get in the way of your own healing? I create failure. And then I use it as my reason for actual failure. I choose people in my life that I know will hurt me and believe in them anyway, even when I know I shouldn't. I procrastinate and I manifest ADHD behaviors, so I don't follow through sometimes. All right, that's a lot of information. All of that just to begin the journey of accepting that a higher power can restore you to sanity. What are our breathing lessons for this week? Find a way to be especially good to your body this week. This will manifest itself in different ways for different people. So choose one of the activities and find a way to explore it deeply. The art, dance, music, nature, fasting, poetry, games. Choose one of those to do. Allow yourself some delicious treat, or eat really healthy, or have a good workout, or take a long bath. So it's suggesting all these things to do for your body, which of course ultimately help your mind and your soul. All right. And the second tradition, the 12 steps and 12 traditions. So the second tradition, which again is the health of AA, the health and structure of the community in which you are seeking support from, is for the group purpose. There's one authority, and that's God. So if I'm in AA and I'm sponsoring somebody, I am not the authority. I am a servant of the Lord. I am a servant of a higher power, there to serve what we know to be true from the universal consciousness, or God, or the 12 steps, to make the individual better while maintaining the integrity of the group. It's interesting. It's just interesting. And I can see why AA is so successful, or why the 12 steps are successful. So that's a lot of information. That's a lot of information for simply admitting we're powerless, that our life is unmanageable, and acknowledging that a higher power could restore us to sanity. That's all we've done so far. I hope that this is helpful. I'm hopeful that my fabulous editor can edit it into a manageable amount of time and put it together in a way that makes sense. But I do know that all these years later, my first AA meeting, I was 27 and I am 61. And just reading the first 2 chapters of this book, it's like I'm learning it for the first time. So that's the beauty of life. So anyway, be good to yourself, be good to someone else. And as always, have a good day, everybody.
Hey, thanks for listening and supporting the podcast. Feel free to leave a review and share my stories with your friends. Please reach out with your own stories, as I love connecting with my listeners. If you would like to get to know Molly, head over to mollybfoundation.org to see what she is all about. If you want to see what I'm up to next, you can find me on Instagram at Barb_444, on Facebook as Barb Higgins, and at my website, 1000tinysteps.com. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter, a weekly way to find out what's up in the life of Barb Higgins.